Picture this. You're in a room with native English speakers, or maybe a video call with colleagues from other countries. The conversation is flowing. Someone asks you a question you know the answer to. You have something intelligent and valuable to say. But then the thought arrives. What if they don't understand me? What if they laugh? What if my accent makes me sound less? And so you say something shorter than what you meant. Or you let someone else answer. Or even worse, you stay silent entirely. And the idea you had, the insight, the contribution, the question, it stays inside, unexpressed. I want to talk about that fear today because in 20 years of teaching English, I have watched it cost people more than any grammar mistake ever could. But I also want to be honest with you. And this is a video that gets uncomfortable in both directions because I'm not going to tell you that accent doesn't matter at all. I'm going to tell you something more nuanced than that and more useful. Are you ready? Let's go. Let's start with the mechanism because accent fear doesn't just feel bad, it produces a very specific kind of damage to your English progress. Here's how the loop works. You're self-conscious about your accent, so you avoid speaking situations, or you speak less than you should in the ones you're already in. Less speaking means less practice. Less practice means less improvement. Less improvement means more self-consciousness about your accent. And around it goes. It's a loop. The fear of sounding bad is the thing that guarantees you keep sounding the way you do. This is the cruelest part of accent anxiety. It masquerades as a reasonable concern. I just want to sound better before I speak more. But that's not how speaking improves. Speaking improves through speaking. There is no other way. You gotta speak. Every conversation you avoid because of accent shame is a conversation that could have built the very thing you're waiting for. The learners who speak most frequently, imperfectly even, with accents, with hesitations, they develop faster than the ones who wait. Not because speaking is magic, because speaking is practice, and practice compounds. So the cost of accent fear isn't just confidence, it's time. It's months and years of progress that didn't happen because you stayed quiet in rooms where you should have spoken. Now, I want to tell you something about my own relationship with accent and pronunciation, because I was not always as relaxed about this as I might seem today. In fact, for a significant period of my journey and my early teaching career, I had it almost completely backwards. Quick word before my story. If accent fear is stopping you from speaking, the fastest way to break that loop is structured, low-stakes speaking practice. Real conversations, real pressure, without the social stakes of a live interaction with another person. The AI speaking coach inside the B2 Edge app is built exactly for this. You practice, you get feedback, you build the evidence that your English is enough to communicate, and the fear starts to lose its grip over time. For you to learn more about the app, the link is in the description. When I was young and teaching English for the first time, I had a belief that I held with complete conviction. To speak English well, you needed to sound as close to a native speaker as possible. I was obsessed with American English pronunciation, the sounds, the rhythm, the intonation. I would listen to recordings and repeat them until they felt natural to me. I studied the mechanics of sounds my mouth had never been asked to make in my native language. I was truly dedicated to closing the gap between how I sounded and how a native speaker sounded. And I'll be honest with you, that obsession actually paid off. It developed my pronunciation to a level I'm really proud of today. It opened doors for me, opportunities I might not have had if I'd been less precise about how I sounded. But here's what I got completely wrong. When I started teaching as a young man 20 years ago, I carried that belief into the classroom. And for a while, longer than I like to admit, my focus when working with students was primarily on how they sounded, the pronunciation, the accent, the gap between their English and what I thought English should sound like. And I was measuring the wrong thing. That's the truth. It took me years and hundreds of students to understand what I was actually listening for, what communication is actually about. The question was never, how do they sound? The question was, what are they trying to say? What idea are they trying to convey? What do they think? And can they make me understand it? Now, 20 years later, that's where my attention goes in every conversation with a student. Past the accent, past the imperfections, straight to the meaning, straight to the person. And when I made that shift, when I stopped hearing accent and started hearing ideas, I realized something important. The accent was never the barrier. The fear of the accent was the barrier. The purpose of learning a foreign language is to exchange ideas, to learn from other people, to grow as an individual, to connect across cultures and borders and backgrounds. That purpose has nothing to do with whether you sound like you were born in Los Angeles or London. And yes, my focus on pronunciation gave me opportunities. I won't deny that. But I now understand that those opportunities came not because I sounded more native-like, but because I communicated clearly. Those are not the same thing. And here is where I need to be very careful, because this video could very easily become an excuse for lazy, sloppy speech, and I refuse to let it be that. There is a difference, a significant difference between speaking English with a foreign accent and speaking English with unclear, confusing pronunciation. Let me give you 3 examples. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Austrian accent, unmistakable. You know exactly where he's from the moment he opens his mouth. And yet, you understand every word he says. Every sentence lands. The accent is part of his identity, and it does not impede communication by a single syllable. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Belgian accent, distinctive rhythm, distinctive sounds, not remotely native, completely intelligible. Penélope Cruz, Spanish accent, musical, warm, unmistakably hers, articulate, expressive, and perfectly clear. None of these people sound like native English speakers, and yet all of them communicate with complete effectiveness. Their accent is not an obstacle, it's a characteristic. Now, contrast that with a learner who drops consonants carelessly, who runs words together in ways that change meaning, who mispronounces sounds so consistently that the listener has to work hard to understand them. That is not an accent problem, that's a clarity problem. And clarity is something you absolutely should work on. So here's the takeaway from this video. Listen very closely. Accent is about where you're from, not a problem, not something you need to eliminate. But clarity is whether you are understood. This matters, and this is worth working on. Caring about how your English sounds in terms of clarity and intelligibility is not vanity, it's communication. But caring about eliminating your accent in order to sound native, that is, for the vast majority of people, a misdirection of energy that could be spent on fluency, accuracy, and more vocabulary. If working on your overall accent and pronunciation is truly important to you, if it is a personal goal, if it matters to you professionally, if it gives you confidence, then by all means, pursue it. I have no argument against that. After all, I did that too. But know this, the overwhelming majority of English speakers in the world, we're talking more than 1 billion here, speak English with a foreign accent. They communicate, they do business, they form friendships, they share ideas, they live full, effective, connected lives in English. Your accent is not standing between you and any of that. Your fear of your accent is. So if accent elimination is not the priority, what is the priority? The same things it's always been. The same things I talk about all the time here on the channel. Fluency, the ability to stay in a conversation, navigate gaps, communicate under pressure without shutting down. Accuracy, the ongoing commitment to precision, noticing your mistakes, closing recurring gaps, choosing the right word, not just a word. And clarity, which sits between the two. Clear articulation, appropriate pace, consonants that land, vowels that are close enough to be immediately understood. Clarity is not about eliminating your accent. Clarity is about making sure that when you speak, the other person doesn't have to strain, to work hard to understand you. You can have a strong Brazilian accent and be completely clear. You can sound unmistakably non-native and be effortlessly understood. These things are not in conflict. What is in conflict is accent shame and speaking practice. You cannot have both. Every time the fear wins, every time you stay quiet because of how you sound, you are choosing a ceiling over a conversation. And you are choosing it for a reason that is, in the grand scheme of communication, almost entirely irrelevant. So let me leave you with this. Your accent is not the problem. It never was. It's a marker of where you came from, of the journey you took to get to English, of the fact that you learned something difficult in a language that wasn't your first. That's not a flaw. That's a story. The problem here is the fear, the avoidance loop that keeps you quiet in rooms where you should be speaking, the self-consciousness that makes you offer less than you have to give. Work on your clarity, work on your fluency, work on your accuracy, and if pronunciation matters to you personally, work on that too. Not to sound native, but to sound like the best, clearest version of yourself in English. But speak. Speak with your accent. Speak with your imperfections. Speak with the ideas you actually have, not the shorter, safer version of them. If you want to build the speaking confidence that makes the fear smaller, conversation by conversation, the B2 Edge is perfect for this. Real practice, real feedback, no social pressure. A place to prove to yourself that your English communicates. Link in the description. And here's what I want you to do this week. Find one situation where you would normally stay quiet because of how you sound, and speak. One situation, one conversation, with your accent, with your imperfections, your full idea. I'm Thiago. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you want to keep learning more, I highly recommend to check out this video next. I'll see you soon.